Today we'll be learning about the spinal cord. So first we'll learn the external features of the spinal cord. So the external features. So first thing is that the length is from 42 centimeters to 45 centimeters. Then we need to know that it has 31 pair of cranial nerves. Its extent is from C1 to T1. So the extent differs from when the baby is in the third week of intrauterine life. The third week. So when it's in the third week of intrauterine life, the spine is from C1 to the coccyx. Whereas at birth, it's from C1 to L3. And in the adult, it's from C1 to L1. So what actually happens? Why is it changing? That's because this is the vertebral column and this is the spinal cord. So as the age increases, the vertebral column also increases in length. So when the vertebral column increases in length, the spinal cord decreases. So they're inversely proportional. Now why do we need to know this extent is because during the process of lumbar puncture. So during lumbar puncture, the neurosurgeons, they insert a needle into, now they know that the column is from spinal cord is from C1 to L1. So anywhere between this, in the subarachnoid space, they're going to insert the needle and remove the CSF. So that's the importance of knowing the extent. So after this, we'll come to the layers of the spinal cord. So the coverings we need to know. So here we have a diagram. So this is the cross section. So what we see here is the spinal cord first. After the spinal cord, the first layer, this layer is called as a pia mater. So we'll be learning the importance of all these layers. So first is the pia mater. After the pia mater is the arachnoid space. What is the fluid between the pia mater and the arachnoid space? That is called as subarachnoid. After the arachnoid and the dura mater, in between these two, we have the epidural mater. And the most last portion is the vertebral column. So first we'll talk about the dural space. So the dural space. So this dura mater, it consists of two parts. One is the endosteal layer and the meningeal layer. Now how do you differentiate between this endosteal and meningeal layer is that the endosteal layer, it forms most of the parts of the brain. But the meningeal layer forms the parts of the skull. And there are two parts in dural space, that is spinal and cranial. So the difference between the spinal and cranial is, firstly, the spinal, it consists of only the meningeal space. That is only this part. But the cranial, it consists of both the meningeal and the endosteal spaces. Next is that the spinal part, it does not consist of folds, whereas the cranial does. So the folds I am talking about are the the falx cerebelli, tentorium cerebelli, and lastly diaphragmatic cilia. So these are the folds I'm talking about. So these are present, they're not present in the spinal, but they're present in cranial. And the last difference is the epidural space. So the epidural space, so this epidural space, it's present in the spinal, but it's not present in the cranial. So it's absent in the cranial part. So what is this epidural space? So this is your vertebral column. Okay, so this is your vertebral column, and this is your endosteal layer. So this is your endosteal layer and this is your meningeal layer. So the space between the meningeal layer, which is between this layer and the vertebral column, this part is called as your epidural space. So epidural space is only present in the spinal but not in the cranial. And the epidural space, it consists of loose areolar tissue. So it consists of loose areolar tissue. It consists of internal vertebral venous plexus. Okay, so now we'll talk about the pia mater. So the pia mater, it's important because it consists of different modifications. Okay, so these modifications, so the first one that we'll talk about is the phylum terminalis. So the first one is the phylum terminalis. So the phylum terminalis is nothing but an extension. So usually the arachnoid and the dura mater, they are present only till the S2 vertebra. But in the case of pia mater, what happens is after the S2 vertebra, there is a continuation which is called as phylum terminalis. So if this is my vertebral column, and so from here to here, so this is my L1 level and this is my S2 level. So the pia mater is till the it's supposed to be till the S2 level, but it extends and pierces the coccyx. Okay, so in this phylum terminalis, there are two parts. One is internum and one is externum. Okay, so the phylum terminalis is 20 centimeters in length. Okay, so in that in these 20 centimeters, 15 centimeters is for the internum and 5 centimeters is for externum. So from where to where is internum? So from since this part is called as the phylum terminalis, so internus is from the cornus medullaris. What is cornus medullaris? It's the lowermost end of the spinal cord, that is called cornus medullaris. So from the cornus medullaris to the dura mater, from cornus medullaris to dura mater, it is called as the internus. So this part is called internus, from cornus medullaris to dura mater. Externus is from the part of the dura mater to the coccyx. So this part is the externus. Okay, so we need to know that it's a non-nervous, and this phylum terminalis, it's non-nervous and it contains nerve rootlets of second, third and fourth cranial nerve. So there are two more modifications of the pia mater, that is subarachnoid septum and the linea splendis. So basically they both are the same thing, except this is the pile extension of the posterior aspect. So this is extending in the posterior part and onto the arc, whereas the linea splendis, it is the pile extension onto the anterior part. So that's the only difference. And then the last modification is the ligamentum dendriculatum. So this is 21, it has 21 pairs and it's called dendriculatum because they look like tooth-like processes. So this is the diagram of the ligamentum dendriculatum. So these are the posterior and anterior nerve roots, and this is the ligamentum dendriculatum, which looks like the teeth. And what do these